let's get right into the news here. Some big news outside of Nintendo Switch. I know, it's crazy to think. The first story here comes by way of Eurogamer. And basically, this is by Chris Pratt and not Chris Pratt, don't be confused. All For Honor DLC maps and modes will be free. Ubisoft has confirmed that any future maps and modes making their way into For Honor will be free to download for all players. So if you don't know, this is kind of the stance that they took with Rainbow Six Siege, and that game has kind of blew up in the years after its release. It didn't have a good release, and then as the year went on and it went into the new year, it actually got more and more popular with the free DLC and them actually fixing the game through updates and stuff like that. And that community has grown. That multiplayer community on Siege has become really strong and really prominent in the gaming community. So this is my personal take on this, and I want to hear what you guys have to say. Games that are only multiplayer, this has a single player, but it's kind of like this game is going to be played for its single player, right? It's just thrown in there to make people make the purchase a lot easier on themselves to know, hey, it's worth it. It has single player as well. Games that are primarily multiplayer, I think this is the route they're going to have to start going, just because you have games like Overwatch, which are so well made, and their microtransactions are done smartly, and all of the updates are free, right? It's the MOBA kind of thing where all the updates that come out are free, and you want your player base to be on there. And the problem with paid DLC for multiplayer games is that you divide your players. The moment you have a paid DLC, you immediately cut your player base. It doesn't matter how much that percentage is, but if there's a gate to get in, you're losing all those players, right? So I think that on a primarily multiplayer game, free DLC maps and modes is super smart. But I want to hear what you guys have to say about this.
Yeah, I just think it's good press. There's not a whole lot of bad that could come out of this. And you mentioned Rainbow Six Siege. I think that's a great example. So I think Ubisoft knows what's going on with their online multiplayer games. They're locking that down pretty well with that and The Division. And, maybe even Steep will come around one of these days. So,
Caleb, do you think this kind of announcement will help with sales?
Yeah, I don't know. I think in the long run it's great. You mentioned games like Overwatch and then MOBAs, so like Dota 2 and stuff like that. And I think that's really the best route you can take. Because sure, you might not get some of those hardcore players purchasing your DLC, but you'll have players returning once the game gets stale and they move on to something else. If they see that there's a new mode or a new map or new characters to play as, it's easy to jump in. But when you have this paid DLC, it cuts off your player base. So I think this is really good in the long run. It's similar to the sort of platform that everybody wants to make their game. So I think it's great. I think we're going to see this trend explode, especially with DLC being a sort of buzzword. I think that soon it won't even be really called DLC at that point. Like Overwatch, you don't call characters like Sombra and Ana DLC.
Characters.
Yeah,
characters,
they're just updates. At this point, it's weird to hear that called DLC, and I'm glad that these big companies like Ubisoft are starting to notice.
Well, the thing too is now that we're moving more towards a digital marketplace, every video game you buy digitally is technically downloadable content. The term was spawned from when you buy a retail game and then you put it in and you connect to the internet and you can buy the downloadable content for that game. So it doesn't even mean the same thing anymore. But speaking of DLC, there was actually another piece of DLC news this week. Mass Effect Andromeda will not feature a DLC season pass, says Sumit Sakar over at Polygon. It's pretty straightforward. If you want to read the rest of the story, definitely go to the link in the description. But this kind of goes in line with the series. Mass Effect has never had a season pass, and people were saying like, why is this even a news story? Well, the thing is that as the game industry has evolved, almost every big release that comes out now has a season pass. So it's nice to see that EA kind of stuck to their guns with the Mass Effect franchise and said, we haven't had a season pass before. Why are we going to have one now? It's weird.
I have a problem with this. Sorry to cut you off, Jared. So yeah, I was, like I said, playing Mass Effect 2, and so as you were saying, these games don't have season passes, even though they've been around in the era of season passes. But they do have like regular DLC packs.
Yeah.
Also, it's the same with Dragon Age, by the way. Dragon Age, you can't get a season pass, but they do have the DLC packs. Problem with this is they're more expensive that way. For Dragon
Yeah.
Age, they were each $15 a piece. And of course, that would be $45. You might have a $45 season pass, but I'm thinking it's, probably like 30 or 40 usually. Same with Mass Effect. I got online on the PS3 store, and to get the DLC packs for Mass Effect 2, it's going to cost me $45. And this game is so old. Like, why would I want to pay that much money? I bought the Mass Effect trilogy for $5.
But I also think
And
that I don't think that's necessarily a problem with Mass Effect. I think that's a problem with digital content. Why does it, like, unless it's sales, especially like on 360 and PS3, it didn't seem a lot of times like those games, even though they were older, they never really reduced in price because the
that's
digital
a
marketplace
whole
was so
other
new.
thing.
Like,
But still, it's the same way with Dragon Age Inquisition. Like I said, I really think it would be more like 30 or $40. That's how season passes work. You usually, if you buy them separately, then you usually spend $5 extra, right? And it's whatever. But if you really love the game and you're gonna play the DLC, why not get the season pass? Save a few bucks.
but then
so it sucks. The whole like price drop thing. It's a way old game, and the prices of the DLC should be dropped. But if it was a season pass, I could just get it all together, which I want to do, and I can't do that. So
but then there's the thing of like the Fallout 4 situation where you look at the season pass and like it'll be four different pieces of content. You necessarily don't know what those are, so you're buying into, you don't know exactly what they're going to be, and some people feel that the season pass for Fallout 4 wasn't worth it.
yeah.
Which
I mean, you
each
can always
their own,
wait
but-
until the stuff's out there.
Yeah, and that's what I'm saying. I'm a high school student. I don't have a ton of money. And so a lot of times it is really hard for me to justify buying a game early and pre-ordering it or buying it like day one. Like that can be really hard for me. But with season passes, I don't buy them before there's any content, before anything's announced, but once I go onto the game later, like the same way that you bought Mass Effect 2 later, it's just way easier to get all of the DLC that way. Just because you don't have to go through and individually buy all those games. Like, I don't want to hate on the PlayStation Network. I know it gets hate all the time, but especially on the PS3, that can be a lot of work. Lots of loading. So it's just nice to do that, but it's also usually just cheaper. And so, I mean, that's nice. Like, Smash Brothers, we were playing it yesterday, and we wanted to get the DLC characters, but they don't have a season pass, and like we did the math, and it's like $45 for the stages and an extra 15 or $45 for all the characters and like an extra 15 for the stages. Why can't you just give me like a $50 season pass so I can just have all the content, give it to me for a bit cheaper, but then you'll also, I'm giving you all my money, and like, I don't know. I don't really see the problems. I guess hearing you say that a lot of times people can buy into something that they don't know ahead of time. But I mean, if you don't want to buy into something something where you don't know what you're getting ahead of time, then I mean, just don't buy it then. I'd just wait a bit.
I think it's also branding. Like, so season pass to me indicates that it's something you're buying at the beginning, right? It's kind of what they do with snowboarding and stuff like that. You get a season pass, right? I think what you're talking about and what you like from a season pass is technically a bundle. Like, if they just bundle everything together and buy it. I think season pass has a different connotation to it. Like, season pass means you're buying something and then you have you don't have to worry about ever buying anything as that game's out because you already own everything. Whereas if something's termed a bundle, it's everything that's come out and you can buy it all at once. I think those are two separate things, you know. I think games should have more bundles. I agree with you on that. Like, if Jordan could get a bundle for all the Mass Effect 2 DLC and it was, you know, a package deal, so there probably would be a deal on it.
No Game of the Year editions on these bad boys either.
Yeah, really weird.
Which, weird as hell, especially with Mass Effect 2. Like, so many Game of the Year awards.
Yeah. Out of all the games, some of the games they decided to like re-release or all that stuff, they kind of just left Mass Effect there. But the last couple of stories here, one actually relating to Xbox, is the Scalebound cancellation. We're all familiar with it. I have a couple of stories here just to get two different perspectives, and then we'll talk about it real quick. So if you didn't know, Scalebound from Platinum Games it was canceled, and over at Inquisitor, they basically wrote a piece from Phil Spencer's perspective, and I'll read you a little bit of that. So basically, Phil Spencer responded to fans' concerns about Xbox if they'll stop taking risks with titles. And he said, "I know we have to take risks. I realize right now probably sounds hollow, but I agree." He also went on to apologize to those anticipating playing Scalebound. "It hurts me as well, and to the community, I apologize. I want everything we start to turn out great, to take risks, create diversity." Also, the last part here, while Spencer wants to take risks on new projects, he may pull back on how soon they are announced. Microsoft has made a habit of announcing games with little more than a concept trailer. My personal opinion real quick, that's what my big issue was with PlayStation's E3 conference last year. With the release 2 years or more away.
Those games are probably going to come out. I don't think we're going to have any Last Guardians or Phantom Dusts in there.
The Xbox boss is reconsidering this practice. I will think more about when we show new stuff. That's good learning for me, he conceded. So that was his perspective. The other story here comes by way of WWG.com, and they basically have Platinum Games' perspective on the matter. Basically, Platinum CEO Kenichi Sato basically stated, "We're sorry to say that on January 9th, Microsoft Studios announced the cancellation of Scalebound. We are very disappointed to end things that things ended up this way, especially since we know how many of our fans were looking forward to this game as much as we were. Going forward, we will strive to continue delivering high-quality games, starting with Nier Automata, and including products like Grand Blue Fantasy, Project Relink, and Lost Order. We will keep working hard to meet your expectations, and we look forward to your continued support." So this is a weird thing. There's some rumors speculating that Platinum still owns the rights to Scalebound, but people aren't sure if that's just the actual IP and not necessarily the game code. So that's why there's no really discussion of Platinum saying, "Oh, we'll release this on our own" or whatever, But what's your guys' take on this? Obviously, they canceled Fable Legends, and they canceled Phantom Dust, I believe, right? That was the game.
Did they? I don't think they've canceled Phantom Dust, have they?
Yeah, they canceled it a long time ago.
They have.
It got announced, and then a month later they canceled it, or like 2 months later they canceled it. It wasn't actually even in development for a very long time.
So, did any of you guys actually like shed a tear at this news? I was kind of like, I could care less. Something looked wrong with that game.
I totally thought this was Platinum's redemption.
Yeah, I thought this game looked really cool.
I think that's gonna end up being Nier Automata. I think that looks like a really great game, and people are loving the demo. So I think that's gonna be their redemption. But I really thought it was Scalebound, because I think Scalebound would have been a bigger game, even though it was an Xbox exclusive. I think it would have been a bigger game than Nier.
Yeah. Well, one of the big issues too, one of the big reports on why this was canceled is because Microsoft had a certain window they wanted Platinum to meet, and Platinum was stating that they couldn't meet that window, that it was unjustifiably short. And my personal opinion, we're not going to know, we're not behind the scenes. My personal opinion is I think Platinum takes on way too many projects, and they're not good at planning what they're doing. I think a lot of times their games aren't very good because they're handling too many projects at once, and they can't put their devotion into a game like Bayonetta. And I think they just have too many things on the plate, and I really wanted to play this game. This looked really cool, but my honest opinion is if I trust Phil Spencer, and if he's leading that team and he feels that it's best to just cut this game and move on, I'm fine with that. I would much rather have this canceled and be a little heartbroken immediately than to wait 10 years for a game to eventually come out. Like, I'm sorry, that's just my opinion on it. Like, I'm fine with them cutting it
I
short.
definitely wouldn't want the 10 game or the 10-year game, long game. Like, that sucks, and I don't think that would have happened. But hell, I mean, like, in the PR stuff that came out from Platinum, they were like, don't worry, guys. We've still got 3 more games coming out. It's
Yeah.
like, Jesus Christ, guys, you're not even that big of a studio. Calm down. So that's definitely a big part of the problem. But I'm sad to see it go because it did look rough around the edges from what we saw. But connecting with your giant dragon is, and having this scale-bound armor, it looks so cool, and the different powers you could use, and then the giant random monsters that you were fighting. It was getting me pumped, and I didn't love the whole guy with beats in a medieval fantasy world, but even the online stuff looked cool, where you're teaming up with other dragon riders to defeat like ultra bosses essentially. So I'm sad to see it go.
No, I'm definitely with you, Jared. That it's silly when like we try to think we know what happened and try to blame one side or the other. I mean, let's be honest. There's 100 lawyers from each of these companies that are going to battle out the semantics of each little detail and how this is going to fall out and whose fault each thing was. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So it's really silly of us to speculate like Microsoft was being unreasonable with the timing and Phil Spencer we have no idea.
Yeah.
You're right in your approach. Like, well, Phil hasn't done me wrong yet, so I'll just trust him. That's the best you can do, really.
And I'm not saying he's right by any means, but what I'm saying is what he's done to turn around Xbox, and if he feels that it's in their best interest to not keep working on a timeline and just be like, hey, we're canceling it. This also means that like resources can go elsewhere. The problem is the people that are complaining that this game got canceled would have been the same people, because it's the internet, complaining that if this game came out and it was like a 6 or a 7, they're like, well, Xbox promised this great exclusive and they gave us this garbage 6 or 7, which 6 and 7s are still pretty good games, but that's how the internet is. It's hot or cold,
It depends on how you
extremes.
frame it, because I don't think people were so pissed about Recore. I think when Xbox basically said, hey guys, it's not gonna be like a 10, so
But that was a
basically set
$40 game.
expectations.
That was also a $40 game.
Right.
Yeah.
So yeah, I do think Scalebound would have been 60, maybe. I mean, Platinum does kind of exist in between triple and single A, somewhere in that double A space. But one thing I wanted to ask you real quick, Jared, do you think that there is a mainline Fable game in development?
Yes. That's actually, you know how for E3 we do our predictions? That's going to be one of my predictions that a new Fable's unveiled. As one of
I don't know if it'll be this quick, but I'm thinking for Phil Spencer to have canceled a fucking Fable game, I'm just like, that's one of their franchises, man. So
but
I'm thinking
that wasn't a
he's gotta have
mainline
something.
though. That wasn't a mainline.
I know. But it was definitely like a big Fable game. It wasn't like the fucking Connect spin-off or whatever.
I was one of a small percentage of people to play it. I played Fable Legends. I was in the testing for it. So yeah.
So I just feel like he's got to have something in his back pocket if he was willing to cancel that.
100%.
Big franchise game.
100%.